way to adjust your manifold absolute pressure sensor. If you have a Mercedes equipped with D-Jetronic injection, you know exactly what these guys are. These are the sensors that, govern everything: your fuel mixture, your injection pulse time, your fuel economy. You could say that this sensor is probably more important than having a perfectly functioning ECU. So the first sensor, I've got three sensors with me. I've got this old, kind of beat up, cruddy looking, but rebuilt by Bosch map sensor. And I've got this defective 3.5 sensor. Can blow right through it. I don't understand why that is, but I can. Then I've got this rebuilt sensor from Bosch that actually was rebuilt by Bosch, and I wasn't really that happy with it, but at least it holds vacuum. And today we're going to talk about when your map sensor needs to be rebuilt and adjusted, and what you need to do before you adjust it. So I was talking today with the highly intelligent and successful Jamie Kopczynski from Classic Workshop, and he was telling me about a new car he acquired, a 280 SE 4.5. And initially when he had got the car ran too lean, and he had to adjust this adjusting screw in his map sensor. So he took a 4mm Allen and backed the screw out until he got a smooth idle and good starting and good power. But that's not the whole story. Jamie could have left it in that position and just kept driving the car. But what he actually did after he adjusted it was he went through and he replaced his D-Jetronic injector seals, and he adjusted his valves. And these are two items that are very critical. The first one, of the engine not losing vacuum, because if you have a D-Jetronic car and you haven't done the injector seals, you need to do them because they're bad. Promise you they're bad. Unless you have a receipt for them, they were done with genuine Mercedes parts in the last 10 years, they're bad. And he adjusted the valves to improve the engine's breathing, because if the engine doesn't breathe consistently in each cylinder, the map sensor doesn't work right. And better valve adjustments mean better vacuum, which mean a better functioning map sensor. Now, why do I say that? Well, it's because this port right here ties right into the intake manifold vacuum. And the map sensor takes the pulse of the engine. It takes the engine's vital signs through the vacuum reading. It doesn't use temperature. It doesn't use throttle position. It doesn't use oxygen sensor data because they didn't have that in 1972. It uses vacuum. And dialing vacuum in is a art. Now, how do you lose vacuum? How do you gain vacuum? You gain vacuum by advancing ignition timing, because then the engine gets greedy. It wants to pull more air in because it has sharper, more early combustion. You gain vacuum by reducing the fuel mixture, so the engine is leaner, so it sucks. It wants to work harder to pull more air in to ignite the fuel mixture. You lose vacuum through leaks on the manifold. You have those big donuts that seal the two manifold halves together. They can go bad. You also lose vacuum on these cars by having ignition point gap or ignition timing that's dialed back too far, or by having too rich of a fuel mixture, because then the engine gets sort of lazy and just fuel's going in, everything's good. Now, on a D-Jetronic car, I can't emphasize how important it is that before you start touching this, you make sure you have the correct W7 DC or DCO spark plugs. You can also use an NGK BP5ES. The only way to get these W7s, though, is to go to your Mercedes dealer and order part number 003 159 1203. That's 003 159 1203. Any questions? You shouldn't have any. You can't get them anywhere else. You have to go to Mercedes. Sometimes you can find NOS W7 DC or W8 DC plugs on eBay. That's also fine. But got to have the right plugs. Got to have good healthy plug wires. You got to have adjusted valves. You've got to have good fuel delivery. So if your fuel pump has not been updated to the late Bosch pump, the newest number from Mercedes, I can't remember what it is. It's like a 002 470 or something, 9001. I can't remember. I don't know the number actually, but it's like $200 from your Mercedes dealership. Once you adjust those things, everything's working right, then you go to the map sensor. Then you take, with the engine warm, this guy, and you either go in or out. Usually it's out to make the mixture a little richer, because as they age, they run leaner. You go to where you get the smoothest idle, and then you can adjust the mixture controller on the computer. But wait, there's more. You should really double check that setting with the car in drive, and if you have air conditioning, with the air conditioning on. That means all your map sensor settings need to be checked with a hot engine. Hot, not warm, hot. Hot engine in drive. So have somebody in the car holding the brake. Load it up as much as possible, because you really want it to run as good and smoothly as it can in drive. If you get it running perfectly in drive, it'll probably run great in park too. Where is this adjustment on a 3.5? Well, this is nice and cold. It was sitting in my air-conditioned office. It feels like a popsicle. You undo this cap, and underneath it is a little flathead screw, sort of like an M130 injection pump rack, if you're familiar with that sort of thing. And you can go in or out with the little screw, with the cap off, with the engine running. Just be prepared when you take this out. Sometimes they like to strip. If that's the case, if they do strip, you have to carefully drill a hole in the middle and tap it for a small screw. It should be about a 4 or 5 millimeter screw. Okay, so let's say the map sensor does not respond well to these things. What do we do then? Well, one thing I forgot to mention is, and this is the assumption, this vacuum line needs to be in good working order, the one that goes from the map sensor to the manifold. Just because it looks good doesn't mean it's good. If it's old, throw it away. But that's when you start looking for ignition faults, point gap that wasn't adjusted right, dirty points. You may have to take your points out and clean them. You may have electronic ignition that's bugging. You may have an injector valve that's bad. You may even have an injection trigger point that's not sending a signal. That happens sometimes. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this little tutorial on the map sensor. Enjoy your D-Jetronic car. The systems actually work better than a lot of Haltech and modern ECUs. I don't care what people say. They really did a great job at Bosch in 1970, because remember, back then things were built to a standard, not a price. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.